Chapter 937, Several Days Later. Empress of Misfortune and Horror. Isn't that the goddess? That's right, misfortune includes bad luck, a part of fate. The goddess has the corresponding authority and can naturally give a response. By giving this suggestion, doesn't it mean that, in Will Ossipton's eyes, he has always suspected that I'm Evernights blessed, it's just that I didn't notice it myself. It's the same as the answer I received about how I should get the high-sequence Beyonder potion formula of the Seer pathway. He is even more certain after what happened at St. Samuel Cathedral. Klein was first taken aback before he became enlightened. As though he was muttering to himself, he said, "If I were to pray to the goddess, no matter what symbols I choose, the final product's effect will likely be inclined towards the domain of bad luck." "That's common sense," the baby wrapped in silver silk shouted. After obtaining confirmation, Klein felt more certain as he said with a smile, "Are you still named Will Ossipton?" He was very curious if he changed his name after being born. "If you like it, you can continue thinking so. However, my full name has already been changed to Will Ceres," the baby replied indifferently. Klein thought before asking, "If I want to deal with the wielder of 008, what suggestions do you have?" "I don't want to know about 008. I just wish to know if you have any suggestions." The plump baby looked at him as he suddenly opened his mouth and let out a loud cry. "Why, The corners of Klein's lips quivered. Upon seeing the maid about to wake up, he took a few steps back and vanished from the room with his two marionettes. Rorsted Sea, on the Future, which was docked in the Bayam Resistance's private harbor. Katlia, who was holding a ritual, saw a drop of silver blood fly out of the illusory door that manifested itself from the candlelight. With just one glance at it, she hurriedly closed her eyes, despite wearing her heavy glasses. At that instant, it felt like an aloof and mysterious wheel was spinning in a circle, forming a silver snake that had its head connected to its tail. This made her repeat her previous thoughts, as she thanked Mr. Fool 12 consecutive times before returning to normal. It really is the blood of a mythical creature from the Fate domain, and its level is higher than an ordinary angel. Katlia ended the ritual in delight, and she took out a container she had prepared ahead of time, placing the drop of silver blood inside. After obtaining some information on the monster pathway from Queen Mystic, and learning the existence of Angel of Fate Ouroboros from Mr. Fool, she quickly came up with a guess as to who the blood belonged to. Perhaps it's the one from the Life School of Thought, or there might be another sequence one angel. Regardless, Mr. Fool is able to use at least 2 angels in the real world. Along with that ancient bane that I can't be certain of, aside from the lack of sealed artifacts, the faction that believes in Mr. Fool is enough to match that of Orthodox churches. Even the Element Dawn and Moses Ascetic Order can't compare. As expected of an awakening ancient god. Increasingly filled with awe, Katlia drew a gasp and began considering her matters. Her other preparations were rather smooth sailing. Without any accidents, all she needed was to wait a month or so to attempt advancing to sequence 4 to obtain godhood. Overcast with heavy, black clouds, silver lightning would occasionally streak across the sky, illuminating the desolate plains and the winding rivers that ran dry. And in the middle of the plains, where the river made a half-circle, black, stacked, shadowy outlines loomed, it was a lifeless city. After several days of traveling, the team led by the chief of the City of Silver's 6-member council, demon hunter Colin Iliad, finally arrived at their destination, Noise City. The team was a small one. Excluding Colin, there were only 4 other members. They were the 6-member council elder, Shepard Lovia, 2 Sequence 5 guardians, Ledger and Gonlun, as well as Sequence 6 notary, Derek Berg. The overall strength of the team wasn't weaker than a complete expedition team, it was perhaps even stronger. According to Colin Iliad, this was because Noise City was filled with monsters, making it very dangerous. Shapeshifters were adept at disguises, and they enjoyed making use of the trust between teammates. Therefore, the smaller the expedition team, the better. And since there were fewer people, there was undoubtedly a need to prepare it with a stronger team. As they watched the city in front of them, which was covered in mist, one that couldn't be lit up despite the lightning, demon hunter Colin drew the 2 swords on his back. Unhurriedly, he slathered a silver-gray ointment on one and a golden liquid on the other. He then stabbed the two swords in front of him. He then removed 3 small metal bottles from a hidden compartment on his belt, pulled out the stopper, and gulped the contents of the potion. Meanwhile, Ledger and Gonlun had made preparations for combat. Derek Berg held his hammer with one hand as he opened up his other palm. With a solemn tone, he said in Jotun, "God says it's effective." Silently, Colin Iliad and company felt that the consumed potion, the conjured dawn, and the slathered ointment had been significantly augmented. Right on the heels of that, concentric rings of warm light emanated out, endowing the expedition team with courage and strength. After Derek used Holy Oath to boost his agility, Colin shot a glance at Lovia, who was holding an animal hide lantern and standing silently observing. He then turned his head to point at the perimeter of Noise City, which was more than 10 meters away. He said to the teenager, who was once again a little taller, "Use your ability to light up the streets ahead." After saying that, he surveyed his surroundings and added, "Once we enter Noise City, make sure we do not separate." A few days ago, I had already introduced the more active monsters that hide away in the darkness in this region. All of you should be aware of how separating will be utilized by the shapeshifter. Gonlun was a beautiful female warrior who was 2'4'2", 5 meters tall. Upon hearing that, she thought and asked, "Then, should we make use of this to hunt the shapeshifter?" "It's best that we do not do so. It's just too dangerous. Also, it's very easy to end up killing our own teammates or end up becoming lost in Noise City forever," the grizzled Colin Iliad seriously warned. Derek looked at the silent city that was cloaked in thin mist as he subconsciously asked, "Your Excellency, was this city also under the Giant King's court?" "Yes, but it's very close to a kingdom ruled by another ancient god," Colin answered patiently. Holding 2 iron-black poles, the 2.4-meter-tall Ledger pressed with intrigue. "Which ancient god?" "King of demonic wolves, the annihilator Phlegria." "Is that so?" Derek remembered the chief's introduction, took a step forward, and extended his arms. Pure, radiant sunlight emitted from his body, illuminating the either collapsed or rotting buildings, the grayish-white stone-paved streets, and the extremely silent city perimeter. Derek and company saw figures appear on the streets. They were either wearing linen robes or animal hides, as though they were busily going on about their day. Upon sensing the sunlight's illumination, they silently turned their heads in unison and looked at the city of Silver Expedition Team. Banzi Harbor at night would occasionally have ravens or other birds calling out. It accentuated the gloom and deathly silence of the ruins. Even the sounds of crashing waves were unable to wash away that feeling. As believers of the Lord of Storms and crew members of the Blue Avenger, the sailors were bold, especially when they believed that there might be gold or valuables hidden within the collapsed buildings. It spurred them on, sapping away any fear that might exist. The moment they arrived, they rushed down the ship and began searching the area in groups of 2 or 3. Alger didn't follow them as he strolled through the ruins alone, in search of any marks that appeared after Banzi Harbor's destruction. As he walked, with him wearing the whip of Mind Ring and having the blade of poison slung by his waist, he came to a collapsed building with crumbling walls and a door that was only a few pieces of charred wood. If I remember correctly, this was the telegraph office of Banzi Harbor. Alger nodded slightly as he approached and did a slight inspection. He then saw a relatively empty area amidst the rubble. The ground was parched black with 2 blood-red silhouettes. It was as though 2 people had been lying there, only to be squashed flat. And this had been months ago. Yet, the 2 streaks of blood remained fresh, as though they still contained some degree of vitality to it. Alger's forehead throbbed as he felt as though he could imagine the vileness before Banzi Harbor was destroyed. He swept his gaze and suddenly saw a picture engraved on a crumbling wall beside the 2 blood-colored figures. It was a spot that the moonlight could hardly shine onto. The picture was very simple, and it wasn't even colored. It was of an armored monster with a squid's head that wielded a trident. Lightning swirled around it as waves surged at its feet. Behind it was a cape formed by bird feathers. Alger's eyes widened suddenly as he felt a tumultuous storm rage within him. He recognized who the monster was representing, because the sun had once depicted it before. It was the warped version of the Lord of Storms, according to Rose Redemption. And could this picture's appearance implied that a Rose Redemption member had previously come to Banzi Harbor, and they had drawn this picture after the building collapsed? Otherwise, it was impossible for the mural to not be damaged. It happened to fill an abnormal, crumbling wall. This should be what the world wanted me to find in Banzi Harbor. He's pursuing Rose Redemption. Alger muttered silently to himself as he raised his right hand. He had planned on destroying the picture, but after some thought, he retracted his arm, circling around Banzi Harbor's former telegraph office as though he hadn't discovered anything. He then walked in another direction.